Welcome back. I hope you had a fine and refreshing break and are now ready to dive into this afternoon session together with us. We are now going to discuss the impact of software in the hardware industry. And it seems that this impact is so significant that we have somehow to rethink this coexistence of software and hardware. But let me open this question with a quote I found recently when I was preparing myself for this afternoon. Here it is. More and more software is getting integrated into the hardware. Those two things are definitely merging. And the line between hardware and software is going to get finer and finer and finer. You might have recognized it. It was Steve Jobs who said this, and it was in the 1980s. So again, he proved to be extremely visionary because today his words seems to be more true than ever. So 4 innovative corporates from Sweden and Austria have come together today to discuss these blurring lines between software and hardware and the impact this has on their businesses. But to be honest, it's not the first time they meet to exchange because the organizers of this event have set up this special Austrian-Swedish cooperation already a year ago. The aim was to bring together a wide variety of corporates, stakeholders, experts, political actors of both countries together to find out the big issues, the big priorities for the future. And the result of that discussion made our program for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So the topics we addressed during this event are those topics they found out and they considered to be extremely important for the future. And one of those topics is the convergence of hard and software. So this is in short the genesis of the subject we are going to discuss right now, and it is now my pleasure to welcome those experts here on stage who will share their insights with us. And this is Victoria Ilger from AVL List, Karl Edebo from Saab, Tamas Bakos from Atlas Copco, Alexander Sisuev from Ericsson Austria, and Florian Frauscher from the Federal Ministry for Digital and Economic Affairs here in Austria. A warm welcome and many thanks for participating in this discussion. We are going to start this panel with, let's say a kind of round of introduction statements, each of you, let's say 5 to 7 minutes. And after that, we are ready for discussion and, of course, ready for your questions. So please don't hesitate to send in what you are interested in, and please use the Slido panel we have provided for you to make things easier for all of us. We have integrated it into the browser window so you can see it on the right-hand side of your screen. Please post your questions there. We have reserved some extra time for that. Well, so then let us start with the statement of Florian Frauscher. He is the Director General of the Federal Ministry for Digital and Economic Affairs here in Austria. And with this, he is the one who sets up any innovative environment and framework, either it regards software or it regards hardware or the convergence of both. So, Mr. Frauscher, what do you observe and what is your scope of action?
Hi, and good afternoon. Happy to be here with you and to discuss this topic. Hello to everyone in Austria, in Sweden, and of course around the world. I was also asked to start a little bit with an overview of the innovation system in Austria and in Sweden. And of course, with a focus on digitalization, on software, and on hardware. Austria and Sweden have, I think, many things in common. We have a similar number of people. Sweden has slightly more people. We have a similarly strong economic performance in both countries. We both joined the European Union 26 years ago, and Also, the cuisine is quite similar. Also, if it doesn't seem at the first glance, in Sweden you have köttbullar, we have Fleischleiberl, it's pretty the same in both countries. So I think we have many things together, but also many things where we can learn from each other. When it comes to innovation, we know Sweden is the innovation leader in Europe. It's #1 according to the European Innovation Scoreboard. But also we in Austria are quite good when it comes to R&D and innovation. We have the second highest R&D expenditure rate in the European Union after Sweden. We are one of the leading nations in Europe with respect to e-government, or how we call it m-government, mobile government, according to the benchmark of the European Commission. We rank under the top 3 countries in Europe, together with Malta and Estonia. Austria scores particularly well when it comes to innovation in public-private co-publications and cooperations, in international scientific publications, vor allem doctorate students coming to Austria, and with SMEs collaborating with other universities and innovative institutions. But of course, we can also learn a lot of Sweden. As I mentioned, Sweden is #1 in Europe, but we have also some particular advantages in Austria. One, for example, is the research premium of 14%. So if you in Austria invest in R&D, you get back 14% of your investment. Is unique in Europe, and there are a lot of other measures. To catch up with Sweden in the field of innovation, we have also adopted some new measures within the last few months. We adopted a FTI strategy with a focus to strengthen Austria as a RTI location, to have a focus on effectiveness and more excellence, and also to focus on knowledge, talents, and skills. But we also have some challenges in Austria. One of these is, for example, venture capital. We have a quite good landscape for startups in Austria. A lot of grants and subsidies in the pre-seed and seed phase. But when it comes to growing for the startups, and a lot of them are in the software business, we have a lack of venture capital in Austria, and we have also a lack of private R&D funding, especially from private foundations. In both things, Sweden is quite good when it comes to venture capital and private foundation funding in R&D. So this is for sure one thing where we can learn. When we come to software development and digitalization, we see 3 challenges in Austria. One is lack of awareness. The second is lack of resources in time and finance. And the third thing is lack of innovation and knowledge. This is especially true for SMEs, and 99% of our companies are SMEs. Our startups are quite good in digitalization. Our bigger companies are really good, but we also have to take into account this big number of SMEs we have and to take them with us. We have implemented also here some different measures within the last months and the last year to help especially SMEs with their software development, with the digitalization. We have implemented SME digital and SME e-commerce, where we give subsidies to SMEs. We have implemented so-called digital innovation hubs that accelerate R&D in companies and in SMEs. These digital innovation hubs are also coming now on a European level, and that's quite happy. We are quite happy to see that. And we have also implemented initiatives to skill people on the job, to create high qualified workplace. And it's, in my view, one of the most important things we have to address. So also to our colleagues in Austria that are listening today, if you are interested in these programs, do not hesitate also to contact us directly, and we are happy to help you also in these things. Thank you for the opportunity to have a first input, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Florian Frauscher. We are definitely going to address some of those topics you have already touched and go deeper into it. And you said, well, cooperating and partnering with Sweden is definitely a good idea. And this is definitely true when it comes to telecommunications. So welcome, Alexander Sissuev, the Managing Director of Ericsson Austria. Ericsson, as you might know, is a leading player in communication services. 40% of the world's mobile traffic is handled by Ericsson network technology, and it is definitely one of the pioneers when it comes to 5G technology. So he is with me here in the studio. Welcome, Alexander Sissuev.
Thank you for a warm welcome. That's my pleasure also to share with you some insights today with regards to why we see software sitting in the heart of the innovations. That's quite an interesting topic because we are coming from the telco industry, which has been seen, might be for some time a bit traditional. We also the big corporate with a long history and therefore with some inheritance that we need to take through this change. And I would like firstly to set the stage with few things related to the software being in the heart of the innovation. So first of all, what we have seen is that it's quite often communicated that we live in a world which is known as the world of VUCA. So with quite a lot of challenges, quite a lot of uncertainties that are just sitting around us. And I think that COVID-19 is a perfect example of why we are in this challenge. If you look into what we have seen before and if you look into what we have observing now, there is quite a significant difference and challenge for big set of the industries, including telecommunication. Now probably to the question, what we have seen popping up in the telco industry is a set of the challenges that is forcing also us to go into the software angle. First of all, we can see that with hardware only, it's quite challenging to bring the innovations in because there is always a hard-coded limitations. There is always a certain limit of the hardware components that you can do something on top on. And then it's quite also challenging to make a step either left or right, just relying on the hardware. We also see quite a lot of new technologies coming in. And 5G, which I was talking about in the morning, is a good example. And this technology brings its own challenges and change requirements. That's a different architecture. That's a different approach to the ecosystem. That's a different set of the expectations also to the different partners and the players within this ecosystem. Another aspect is that each and every new technology brings a set of the opportunities, but it also brings a set of the challenging requirements that needs to be fulfilled. Just imagine two different industries, all of them might have completely different expectations on the use cases and the way how these use cases are being realized. So from this perspective, we are seeing in the telco industry also growing demand towards customized requirements, towards tuning those requirements, towards delivering those requirements in the real network. Apart from that, we also see that these new technologies are demanding completely different software development approach. And this software development approach assumes that we need to release the things quite frequently in the pipeline. This also assumes that we need to upgrade the things much more frequently than it was before. Not because of some software mistakes, but just new customized requirements are popping up almost every day. So these infrequent software upgrades is something that is actually bringing us to the edge of saying, yes, we need to put even more focus on the software. So from this perspective, it's pretty clear that we as a representative of telco industry and telco industry as such, both need to change. Just because, again, we are living in this VUCA environment. And then when it comes to the couple of examples that we see also in our software development, we have made certain steps in order to put a bit more pressure on the software. A few examples here. So a few years back, when the whole topic of the 5G was starting over, we were saying, yes, service providers, please be aware that you can modernize your radio access networks just by enabling the software plugins, so-called 5G software plugins. It's not changing the hardware completely. It's leveraging on top what has been already invested and delivered and deployed, and it's really focusing on the software. Another example, I mentioned to you about the continuous releases of the software that we are doing. That's something that we are no longer doing on a half-year basis, but every month we deliver new features. We test those features frequently. They're constant in test. And this is in order to allow our partners to innovate continuously with the software that they're using from us. And this also puts a certain requirement towards the pipeline where our customers are delivering and integrating this software, because they need to provide a frequent feedback to us as a supplier. They need to test these features in live environment and with live equipment, and they need also to play with the new test cases and use cases. Apart from that, we can see that for example, if you pick up the story of the cloud with the cloud stack, we are now saying that, yes, there is a certain focus on the software, there is a certain focus on virtualization layer, and infrastructure, hardware infrastructure, this is just one-off. This is a layer that, yes, lays on as a foundation of the cloud applications, but at the end of the day, it's just providing the infrastructure, nothing else. The logic, the brains are sitting exactly in the software. Another example, during the last year, we have introduced a concept which is called Cloud Run. And this Cloud Run concept is interesting because it allows to leverage on top of the COTS hardware that is available at each and every corner. So from this perspective, we again shifting all the brain, all the logic, all the intelligence up to the software that is interestingly enough, observed now in the industry or the solutions which were believed to be purely hardware, such as radio access network. And one more thing that I'd like to convey here, it's about open source. We understand as a supplier and the vendor that it is quite important to listen to the voice of the industry. And this voice of the industry is quite frequently channeled towards us and towards the partners through the open source communities. You can see here, for example, a couple of them like ONUP or Open Run or OpenStack, Kubernetes, etc. So we are not only part and members of those communities, but we are actively contributing with the software development in those communities and making these software components available for everybody. And that's a true power of the innovation that we are trying to introduce. So those were just few examples how we put as Ericsson the focus on the software. But I hope that it gives you a flavor that, yes, it's really serious, and the whole innovations are happening if you put this exactly at the heart of the software development.
Thank you, Alexander. Wow, a wide range of topics have already been addressed so far. Also, the topic of startups and the cooperation with startups has been addressed, and this is a good keyword to hand over the virtual stage to Victoria Ilger. She is Innovation Manager and Startup Scout for the AVL Creators Expedition, working together with AVL very closely, which is one of the leading development and engineering companies in the automotive industry. The AVL Creators Expedition drives startups, respectively automotive startups, in the area of electric mobility and autonomous driving. So what Victoria and her team does is to connect startups with the AVL departments and leads them through, well, those various project phases they need to build a strong partnership with AVL. Welcome, Victoria. The stage is yours.
Hello, thank you for that nice introduction and thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to a sparkling discussion now. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. I'm happy to be here at the B2B Software Days and this discussion. As already mentioned, I'm part of the Creators Expedition, the AVL Startup Initiative, where we see exactly what was discussed before. We are living in that VUCA world, and of course, collaboration gets more and more important, and therefore we are looking for cooperation in the field of electric mobility, autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, and also sensors. And software plays an important role here from the beginning on. So, but today we want to focus on collaboration in terms of software innovation. And as we already heard from Alexander, software is more in the focus than ever before, and this for various reasons. But I think if we look at the shift from hardware to software, we also need to take a look at the shift of the business model, because the business model is changing a lot when we are going from hardware to software. The value proposition companies offer is changing, as well as the way they transport their services, sell them, and make them available for customers. So this also means that we see a tremendous shift in their processes and the way they are organized. So we have different key resources and key activities, and we need to take into account also different partners. And that shift is also something we see, of course, in the automotive industry, which is going much more into the direction of software than before. And of course, the shift from physical products to digital products also has an impact on the speed. For example, if we think of physical products, there were releases in generations. Now, if we're thinking of digital projects, they grow with several iterations throughout the time, and you have a quicker time to market for the beginning. So this, I would say, and the fact that we are living in very disruptive times. And honestly speaking, I think that's not just for the automotive industry, that's for various industry. As we've also seen in pre-discussion in these rounds, we're living in disruptive times, and customer needs and expectations are changing rapidly, as well as new technologies and new players are popping up all the time. So what we observe is that collaboration and partnerships are becoming more and more important, because we want to stay ahead, and to form strategic partnerships and alliances is a key topic when talking about that. And I think that could be a key differentiator for the future. Okay. So moreover, we see that there are many software business models where product and process innovation is not alone longer sufficient to successful market technology. So to stay competitive, many software companies adopted innovative business models by changing the dominant logic of, let's say, doing business. So the emerge of cloud platforms, for example, which is important for all of us, the explosion of data, and of course also the development of new avenues of information have led many companies to build up whole software ecosystems, which can be internally and externally. So when we look at that shift, we also recognize, and this is also something which is in our industry and in other industries, I would say, that in former times or before, hardware was key. Then we started to have hardware with software. So it was seen more as an add-on to hardware, I would say. And now we see that there is software, and sometimes there are even business models where hardware is kind of the door opener in order to sell the software later on. And when we go a step wider, we see that hardware as a service is getting up and software as a service. But even more important, we see that in the software business, platforms become key. And a marketplace business is one example of a platform. And in former times, this was more in B2C. And now we see that platforms also play an important role in the B2B sector. And this brings me to the next topic, why collaboration is very important, because this is a total shift in the way we see collaboration in my eyes. Because before, it was more a customer-supplier relationship. Now, when talking about platforms, it's really a partner approach, let's say, because talking about platforms means that we need to have a critical mass. So we need the ones who bring in the information, the products, and the services. We need the other ones who need those services. We need, of course, a platform supplier, so somebody, a platform owner who is giving the platform. And I always try to explain it with that picture. So we have these consumers, we have the producers, we have partners, and we have the owners of the platform. And for everybody, there must be a strong advantage, because a platform will just work if we have a collaboration and everybody gets out a strong advantage. So by saying that, what I mean is that in these days, it's not possible to just look at relationships through a partner, through a supplier approach. It has to be seen as a collaborative partnership approach on an eye-to-eye level. So collaboration we see as one of the key aspects when talking about also the shift from hardware to software. And collaboration can be done, or the mindset shift can be done by, of course, first raising the awareness in the company that collaboration is important. And then also there are different channels. And like said before, in AVL, we have Creators Expedition as one example where we deal with startups, but not only startups, we also are highly interested to work in ecosystems with other companies, and of course, also with universities and R&D companies to create, let's say, the future mobility of tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, what a big message. Collaboration, obviously a big issue. And as you said it, we definitely will need to rethink how we see collaboration and cooperation. We will go definitely deeper into it later on. And thus, I'm really curious about the statement of our next remote guest. This is Karl Eldebo. He deals with collaboration as well as a startup collaboration manager at Saab, where he is heading a group of innovation managers and support startups to find the right people within the large international organization. Saab, a company, as you know, serving the global market with solutions that increase security, ranging from civil security services up to military defense solutions, and an enterprise that has a strong focus on hardware, or should I say, had a strong focus on hardware. Karl, it's your turn.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Let's see if I am unmuted, I think. Do you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I was unmuted.
No.
It's very nice to be here on this digital conference. Unfortunately, I would say beforehand, but now, I mean, there are so many nice connections to be made. There are so many people to meet, even though we're doing it in digital or virtual right now. I'm going to talk a little bit about a specific case at Saab, where collaboration and fusion and software goes together. But firstly, very, very shortly about Saab. We are not the auto manufacturer. I used to start with that because we spun that business out 30 years ago. We are a security and defense company, as you very much say. We have a wide range of products. We are an international company, quite large, but small in our area. But right now, I'd like you to focus on radar solutions, which is one part of our portfolio. We have been, for many, many years, been making radars, both land-focused radars, radars put on airplanes, radar put on vehicles, sensing the world around it. It might be airplanes, it might be boats, it might be anything. Of course, this was hardware generating a little bit of information. If you take information-wise, if you look at maritime surveillance, like looking at ships and boats, we're not the only players there. You have radar, of course, but you have sonar, you have satellite, and you also have the ship communicating with different sources to tell us where it is. And all this information, what do you do with that? Well, you know, you've seen the movies, you look at it. You take a human person and you put it in front of the screen, and the person looks at the data and through its experience and its knowledge shares what's happening with this boat. So we started by asking ourselves, and what happened if we took all this information and poured this into an AI? We named this AI Mimer's Well because of the Nordic or the Norse mythology person. You can look that up, it's quite interesting. But what happened when we poured all this data into an AI, what we got, not only space as a layer, but also time. This information was layered up, and this AI could suddenly distract information from different timelines, from going back, and also replay this sensor data for itself. So it started learning a lot about the world around it in this massive sensor fusion. We have everything from video to sound to radar to satellite, anything put into this. This, of course, made it possible to detect behaviors, to see that here's an airplane coming in, here's an airplane coming out, which in such case also made it possible to predict what would happen in the future. This airplane is looking to, and we think that it's coming in like this, and in 2 hours it will end up here. That was the first step. But then the AI started detecting anomalies. That turned out to be quite hard for a human to do, looking at all these vast data. But the computer was able to say, well, look at that little thing there. It's not behaving like I thought it would be. It's an anomaly. So all this ingested into one big data lake, as you call it, with pattern recognition, anomaly recognition, behaviors in different flavors. This suddenly unlocked new capabilities. I mean, we had been looking at boats and airplanes, but we realized that this data lake with different sensors, with different kinds of data could serve us in other ways. One example is after the tsunami in Indonesia, Mimer's Well was able to tell right on spot where the damages had been on buildings by comparing past images with new images, and thus guiding the disaster relief right. That's quite simple when you think about timelines. A new possibility that we are opening up right now in the deep forest of Brazil is wildfire detection. Through sensors on satellites, airplanes, but also on the ground, Mimer's Well is able to tell us where things aren't doing what they should do, and thus be able to detect wildfires long, long before they actually start to grow in the space that you would see it from a human eye, so to say. So all this, of course, opens up a lot of the things that we have touched before. Collaboration. We have moved from making physical radars that we sell to customers that we have known for 20 years into a new space where we could take basically any sensor data and put it into this. And the more sensor data and the more we have in, the more strange things we could do. And we haven't barely just touched on what we are able to do with this, with partners, with different kinds of ideas for this AI. So much from me right now. We will talk more in a little while.
Will, definitely. Thank you, Carl, for these impressive examples you brought into this discussion. But let us have now the final player in our discussion is Tamas Barkos from Atlas Copco, where he has been nearly 20 years in the compressed air and gases solution B2B business. He worked in different roles internationally already. As you might know, Atlas Copco has its customers in more than 180 countries. The headquarters still in Sweden. He and his colleagues stand for the improvement of reliability, efficiency and sustainability in factories, which is one of the main purposes of Atlas Copco. Welcome, Tamas.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Do you hear me? Do you see my full screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So indeed, I would like to join to the former presentation from Carl, where he was mentioning several times the air. We are also working with air, but we compress it and then we make it work in several applications. But we are doing much more than that. And that's why we call ourselves as the home of industrial ideas. And I think this online forum today is a perfect opportunity to talk about our purposes and to make sure that our industrial ideas empower our customers to grow and drive society forward. This is how we create together a better tomorrow. And we are doing this via our core values, which you can see as a continuous circle, and innovation, where I would like to start, which is the topic for today. It's not only internal innovations that we are applying, but also innovative thinking, working and collaborating with partners and customers, and that's where you see it's a quite strong symbiosis as an interaction. As I mentioned, that one of the reasons why we are here today and talking to interact about the future, even talking about the presence or maybe some experience from the past, which can help us to improve together the outcome in the next decade or next centuries, because our commitment is very strong in these segments. We are nearly 150 years on the market, and maybe I can announce on behalf of the whole group that we are aiming for another 150 years at least. So if we jump to the next slide, I just would like to show you how used to be a compressor room. Okay. Yes.
And you can continue from here on if it is okay for you.
Perfect, thank you. And actually, indeed, that's when the real deal starts. So I think the first introduction part was missing. Is not problem if it was not supported by slides. Good. So then I would like to show you how a compressor room looked like in the past, which is used for several segments and applications. Like Victoria mentioned, we are there in the automotive industry. We are using different applications with compressed air. And this is the hardware, and then what's the change? You know, on each hardware you could see a little bit of a central brain for each equipment, which is representing the software. So that's already one step: running the machine, controlling the machine, and giving a communication interface. If you look actually closer to this picture, it's a simulated augmented reality, and this is also now using more software, how we can simulate new installations without making, you know, detailed drawing. We can make measurements, we can simulate the consumption of the customer and then match it with the best, most efficient mix of products, which is contributing a lot in long term of the life cycle cost, the reliability, and the efficiency. And this is the circle where we are extending our footprint from the hardware to the software area. And normally in this room, since many years, you also can see a central brain, a central controller, which is mounted on a wall and making the whole team, the whole compressor room working precisely, adopting the need of production and matching with the best efficiency, providing figures and sensor data on reliability in case of any deviation from the optimal value, that it can adjust immediately, and then can send signal notifications either to the local team or to us, that we can prevent shutdown or breakdowns. And obviously, when we are talking about these operations, sustainability is playing a big role. It's not only about the energy what we are using, and the more we are saving from the electricity, then the more we are saving for our globe, but it's also helping to extend the life cycle of these machines and run it longer, and then decide in the right moment when it's better to shift to another technology, a new generation, when it can contribute even more on sustainability. On the central monitoring, we collect all this data from the individual machines, and then it makes a certain analysis, and it also provides this gateway to remote locations and remote data banks. You can see several segments, which I just mentioned here, a couple of them, where we are all operating these installations, which is contributing a lot on this strong ISO 50000 energy management. And this central brain actually is connected everywhere. It's connected within factories, it's connected to the customers, it's connected to our services, to our main headquarters, and it's also linked back to our R&D. Because when we develop something, we try to design it to the best match where this product, this solution will work. But many cases we see that the reality is deviating from that design perspective, because there is a change on production, there is a new product coming. So with this connectivity data and with this visualization, we can check what is the real use of these machines. And either we adopt this installation locally immediately, hand in hand with the customer, obviously, or we use this for the next design. If we see continuously too high temperature is contributing, or too low temperature in certain data, then we make sure that the next design will be designed perfectly for these conditions. With this remote user interface, the customer itself can see a lot of data connected to their system, making the nice reports, energy reports. They can see the utilization of these machines. They can see that what is the future, smaller installation, bigger installation needs to be extended. how the maintenance should be done and planned properly, to do it in the moment where there is barely a need for compressed air, plan it on the weekend, see it from the consumption profile. And also this data is giving historical data stored in the cloud. So anytime, anywhere, with the right access, this data can be accessed and then can be further analyzed for different purposes. Alexander mentioned also the connectivity, like on the Ericsson network, 40% of the mobile data is going through. I think we are also contributing a lot to this, because via these systems we provide via the gateway the information to the SCADA system or to the DCS system of the company. I also mentioned one step forward where I think in our private life we are also facing sharing services or using and sharing cars or scooters, electric scooters, electric bicycles. This is what we also see already with compressed air, not owning necessarily the whole installation, but offering from us as a service and pay for the force utility as you pay for gas, you pay for water, you pay for electricity. There is a need now, and then we provide a service to pay per cubic meter for the compressed air. So I think there are numerous opportunities to work together in the future in the compressed air development together. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Tamas, for bringing in this example. And thank you for these first impressions, stressing the significance of the topic we are talking about. And let us now step into the discussion. And well, let me focus a delicate topic when it comes to collaboration, which is obviously so important when we talk about software and hardware convergence, which is the path you are on the way. Well, how can industry work even better together with software companies or other external partners, without compromising themselves? I mean, we're talking about valuable developments. I mean, these are true assets for your companies. So how can this be managed? Victoria and Carl, you are the experts when it comes to collaboration with startups and external partners. How do you manage that? Victoria, would you like to start?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, that's a tough question because I always say there is no secret sauce for that and no secret sauce for collaboration. Every company is a little bit different in that perspective. But what I've learned from the startup collaboration together with AVL is that it's not just important to have the legal stuff done. Of course, you need a collaboration agreement, you need an NDA and stuff like that, and this should be worked out properly. But even more important is that everything is communicated very clear to both parties, to the corporate and the startup, or also to corporate and corporate, doesn't matter with whom you're collaborating, and that it's clear that you have a common vision and mission, and that for both parties or for more parties, they all have a big advantage. So to always keep the collaboration in balance. And I think if you can motivate the parties to a common vision, a common goal, and the advantages they have, then the first step of the way is already done, let's say.
Carl, do you agree?
Yes, definitely. And I also would add, when we come into the software world, we have also to build the software in other ways. We as a large company must do our homework so that we easily can get new things in. I mean, if you have a screw and you replace that screw, it's quite easy, but software built in the old way is quite hard to integrate with. I mean, you own the whole structure. So we are relearning how to build software that's a hard word, compartmentalized, so that we can just put in new things without either damaging security, of course, but also without having to rebuild too much to be able to integrate new partners and new ideas into software.
Yeah, security is a big issue. New technologies are good technologies, no doubt, but they cause challenges in the security world as well. Alexander, well, yeah, let me ask Alexander, how do you manage the security topic and issue?
You're absolutely right. Security comes with an enormous set of the opportunities. At the same time, new technology brings probably some things that you need to be aware, because there might be new vectors of challenges and so on. And even Victoria is saying that there is no secret sauce. There are two words that I think are key to put into the context. First is awareness. All the partners in this collaborative approach need to be aware that yes, there might be challenges coming not because of them, but because of the bigger consortium or new use cases, etc. And another word is trustworthiness. It's important that all the parties trust each other, and this trustworthiness should be seen through several angles. It's a supply, it's features, it's use cases, it's secure communication, it's secure delivery. And once awareness and trustworthiness are there, then I think it would be much easier to deal with challenges.
Let me address another topic Victoria mentioned. She says new stakeholders are popping up, or it was something like this. Excuse me if I don't have the correct word. So I guess when integrating hardware, software in a hardware business, it must feel like, well, moving from hardware to software in a complete new world. So you have to address new stakeholders like universities, startups, I don't know who this is. And this is something I guess you have not been used to so far, or have you? And if not, how do you manage it? Alexander, would you like to start?
That's a very good question, and here I'd like to bring as an example the 5G technology. So what we have seen already in the mobile communication technologies of the previous generation, that the ecosystem approach of the partnerships are quite important, and this openness is quite important. The good example of why it was happening in the 4G, that there was a growing number of the internet giants that are coming into the daily segments of the business. For example, Amazon or Apple, they are building also the ecosystem of the applications, and this is something that we use on a daily basis. This is because technology was providing this open innovation approach. With 5G, we believe this open innovation approach will be even bigger, because consumers and industries are supposed to get the benefits of the 5G, because industries are coming with completely different set of the use cases. And this collaboration, this usage of the 5G as an open platform for innovations is something that just by DNA has this idea of innovative and collaborative approach.
Victoria, may I hand over the word to you as you mentioned those popping up stakeholders?
Yeah. I'm definitely, I can share the opinion of Alexander, definitely. So I'm totally with you on that. We are, as AVL, are in a very strong position when talking about collaboration and different stakeholders, because since we were founded, we were deeply integrated with university, for example, so universities all over the world. So we had the chance to learn step by step how to collaborate first with universities, then with smaller companies. Then we tapped into that startup world. And one learning is that, of course, everywhere in life, you need to build up a network and an ecosystem so that you have the right people to address and that they know you. And this opens up a lot of opportunities as well, because you can also think of developing something together with a customer, for example. Sometimes we forget about that. Also, that is important. So I would add that to R&D networks and startups and university. Also, developing together with communities and customers can be a great approach, of course.
Let us not forget the customers. Karl, what do you think?
Yes, definitely. And also coming back to big companies have to do their homework. I mean, as Alex say, and as Victoria is heading the Creators Expedition, we also are setting up at Saab a whole new structures to be able to collaborate with startups. Because, I mean, we are quite used to the old world of suppliers, large companies, big companies. Now suddenly suppliers are growing up. In 5 years, there's a new sheriff in town, and we need to be there, and we need to build these like you said, Victoria, you need to build these networks out in this world, and that's very new for us. But as we do this homework, we also see the opportunities that arise. For example, collaborating with other large companies. Might there be customers, or might there be suppliers, or just having the same idea like we are having here, which is also very fruitful and expands the possibilities of a company.
That's interesting. Well, before I bring in the questions of our audience, let me ask Florian Frauscher, and let me reflect on that. I mean, we hear from the industry that there are obviously new needs in the market and definitely new networks being formed, new stakeholders that have to be communicated with. How do you see all this from the political point of view? So how can collaboration, for example, can be supported? And in general, how can a government strengthen a country like Austria as an innovation hub?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think bringing together new players is really key. Collaborating is really key to make the step forward as a whole, as a country, to digitalization, but also for every single company. And I mentioned before this digital innovation hubs. We have implemented in Austria already 6 of them, and they are one-stop shops where companies can go and they meet their other players. They meet big companies, they meet the startups, but they also get a contact with developers and with digitalization specialists. We can provide their access to technical expertise. We can give them innovation services like financing advice and also training and skills for their employees. And I think that's really important because we see really a lot of SMEs that are in the old business. And we have also to take these companies with us on the road to digitalization. And only if we bring them together, and if the bigger companies that also are here discussing with us take them, the smaller companies with them, and work together with them, in the end it can work. I think it's important also that not everyone do everything, but to have a special focus on special topics. So some of them are, I don't know, in artificial intelligence, other works on cybersecurity or on new technologies. Some have to work on big data. I think that's really important to bring the right people together. In the end, we as a government can just provide the framework and to help the companies, but in the end, of course, they have to do the step. They have to work together, and in the end, hopefully to implement the new technologies, the new business models.
And there is another big issue that we need to look at if we are talking about those things, and this is education. So I would like to reflect that this new situation probably also implies new skills from the workforce. So how do you face this education topic, Mr. Frauscher?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really big challenge, these new skills. And it's not only for the workforce, it's for all. It begins in the kindergarten, and it's in the schools, in the universities, and it goes up to the elderly people, because if we don't take them with us, they can use the product in the end, or the new business models and the new services. So I think we have really to look at every part of society and how we can train them in the best. And we have also here different initiatives. For example, we organized the dual vocational training in Austria. We look at every single apprenticeship to be modernized, and every single of them are equipped with digital content. But we need also, for example, tailor-made courses for companies, because a lot of them companies have really special problems, and we bring them together, for example, with universities, so they can work on this problem and also skill their people on the job on this problem. Or we have the initiative in Austria, Fit for Internet, it's called, where we make digital cafes. We did them also before the pandemic already, and where we bring older people together, and we show in the coffee shop older people how to use a smartphone, how to use an iPad, because of course when also we as a government, our services are only here in a digital way. They also need to know how to use them, and so it's so important to take them also with us.
Yeah, and definitely a topic where the cooperation between the government and companies is highly appreciated, I guess. Let me stress another megatrend topic, and that is sustainability. One question that arrives us via Slido is the following. IKEA previously mentioned sustainability and digitalization convergence. Do you also see that happening, and how much do you invest in sustainability? I would like to ask Tamas first of all, as sustainability is something that Atlas Copco stresses a lot.
Yes, I think it's defining, our future not only as a private person, and that's what I really like to keep this mindset and bringing this mindset from the private to the professional life. Like at home, if you switch off the lights, these things has to live in the industry. We are not owning every time the business, or we are collaborating as an employee, but we have to understand through on these acts and thinking, we can contribute a lot to our future, to our children with sustainability. So when it comes to the technology, I think it's very important from the very beginning of the design phase, how the whole life cycle will be treated, including not only the amount of materials will be used, but the energy which is required to produce this certain design, the pollution it can cause, the electrical consumption it will consume over the years, the maintenance which is required, how often, which part needs to be replaced. And then, of course, when it comes to the end of the life cycle, we have to make sure that there is a correct scrapping process, because not only I'm talking about compressor, but here I think I can refer Carl to sub products as well. They're very complex machines, and then the waste has to be handled correctly. There are a lot of parts has to be reused. There are a lot of parts, electric parts, which has to be disposed properly. So this is, let's say, a whole life cycle, and it starts all over again. So that's where I see that sustainability is everywhere. It's more than energy consumption. It's more than environmental friendliness. It's a lot of other things as well.
Yeah. And will change our lives, definitely. Would anybody else like to comment? Just give me a show of hands if you would like to comment on sustainability topic. Carl, please.
Yes, and I also think that, like you said, Tamas, there are so much things that we are able to do today in the whole life cycle analysis, which has been very promoted the last few years, which is fantastic. And digitalization is also in ways driving this. Like you told us, Tamas, that you have software monitoring everything, And also, as it comes to business models, we're going more and more into everything as a service. And I would say that it's the same thing actually in the military world and in the governmental world. We are going more and more into everything as a service, which means that suddenly it pays off to be substantial. It pays off to have high quality. It pays off to have things that are working for a long time, that are replaceable with a smart version instead of just producing and scrapping. Mm-hmm. And this is one thing that I really like with the whole digitalization of all industries, actually.
Yeah, today, completely another topic. Today, I have heard some voices defending open source software and some critical voices against open source software as well. This question is, open source software has shown the benefits of open innovation. Is open source hardware a way forward? So who would like to comment? Yeah, Alexander.
That's a very good question. And I think that what should be seen here is that software and hardware, both sort of industries, should learn from each other. Mm-hmm. Open source software is one of the ways forward, but it has still learned a lot from the hardware, because innovations, yes, indeed, they are much faster happening when it is open source, but at the same time, there is certain intelligence that corporates are bringing either within the software and hardware, mm-hmm. and that needs to be also put into the angle. One good example here would be a combination of the open source software with a certain hardware mm-hmm. that is focusing on delivering high performance and guaranteed sort of the KPIs, for instance, from the network, etc. So I think that, yes, this open source hardware is probably a popular sort of the hype word, but open source hardware should first a lot learn from the open source software.
Well, interesting. Any other comments, any other opinions, then please raise your hand. No, then let me proceed to the next question, coming back to the collaboration issue. The question is, many startups have the fear of acquisition when starting a discussion with large corporates like you. What could you say to them? How can you build trust? Victoria, would you like to? Mm-hmm.
Course. So yeah, I know that argument, and I think most important is to be transparent from the beginning on. And I always say, look, we are now interested in strategic partnerships. Let's find a common way, a common goal where we can work together, where we both can earn, where we both have a competitive advantage out of it. So I think one key for that is transparency, and people recognize if you are transparent and honest in that way, because all the other steps you're going must be aligned with that transparency. So coming back to any contracts or stuff like that, this also needs to be then super transparent, and you need to keep to that line, let's say, in my opinion.
Trust is a key word, obviously. Carl, do you agree?
Definitely. I mean, trust and mutual goals. But one way that we as large customers can press this, we have already tried out, the people sitting here and a couple of other large corporates. We met startups together to say that we are only looking for suppliers, which means that it's even better if you start working with us and Ericsson and ABL at the same time, because then we can together form your product the way we want it, and you get 3 customers, or also, of course, that was Copco. You can get 4 customers on one table. And I mean, it depends on what you're after. If you're after a new supplier, or if you're looking for an acquisition, then you should be very transparent about that and say, we're looking to buy new companies. Because, I mean, there are a lot of companies out there that want to get bought also. But then it comes back to the transparency. What are we looking for, actually?
Thank you for this insight. Here comes a question addressing collaboration from another point of view. The question is, how easy it is in such large organization to drive innovation with external partners? How do you overcome the internal resistance? That's interesting, isn't it? So, who would like to? Well, Alexander.
It's a very good question, and I was expecting that this question will arise. I think that in the big corporates, we have a unique opportunity to blend, let's say, the experience that we have over the years, but also blend the demand that we see happening and arising from different countries, and also put these together with some ideas that are coming from inside the company, from the employees. And one good example of such internal collaboration would be that, for instance, at us by Ericsson, we have started the setup, which is called Garage, and this Garage is open also for the external partners to come with some new ideas that are possible to put into the production chain and test from different perspectives later on. One more thing that I'd like to convey here is that Mr. Frauscher has been mentioning the framework of the collaboration and the innovation exchange. I think that for us at corporates, it's becoming crucially important to be open to be part of this framework and even to ask for a possibility to be within this framework. Afterwards, the collaboration and innovation will be driven much easier.
Mm-hmm. Did I see a raise of hands? I thought that there was one. Yeah, Tamas, please.
I just wanted to add that maybe in general, I think what we can do in the background together with our, management is defining the right company culture in general for being open-minded and accepting new partners, new way of working, because it will not start from one day. Okay, this is this startup company. Let's work together and then let's have trust in them. This is not happening like this. If we're working on long term, and when it comes to the point, it has to be already there, because it's very difficult to make the switch from one moment to another.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. There is another question stressing another topic. When your digital business models and customers change, and I guess you all go through changes permanently, for example, leasing cars and not buying them, how can you address them without cannibalizing current customers? Victoria, I would like to ask you, as we're just talking about cars.
Yes, so an important question, of course, and you always need to keep the balance on that. But basically, most of the time, new customers address most of the time we address new services to new customers, which are especially needed by those customers. For example, in the automotive industry, maybe not just OEMs are important and tier ones. Now also fleet operators could become important. And when you take care of that, there is not a cannibalization right away, because they are addressing different industries, they are addressing different services they need from our side. But of course, this is an important topic where we need to take care of. But also here, of course, I think you can find ways, but you need to address the right service to the right stakeholders.
Hmm. Let us not forget the customers. It has already been said today. Well, any other opinions or comments on that? No. Well, then I have another question. How do you collaborate with companies outside of Europe? How can we make sure that the value chain and the added value remains in Europe? Maybe Carl, so Swedish as you are.
I mean, we have operations, and we have a lot of collaborations with startups in Brazil and India, and building up in Colombia and the US. And I wouldn't say that, I mean, the things that we are really good at Saab, of course, we should keep them indoors. And that might be in Australia for all that matters. But the things that we aren't the best at, or don't want to be the best at, it's better if that thing grows and anywhere else. If it's in Europe or if it's across the ocean somewhere. That's a good part, because I mean we are in a global economy, and I wouldn't say that Europe sets the parameters for that. But it's also important in collaborations to know, what do we want to get really good at? Then we have to hire people in that. What do we need, but we don't want to be the best at? For that, we need external parties.
Anybody else? Alex, Victoria.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Karl. So this is something which we also need to talk about. So not in every topic we need to collaborate. So there are certain topics in our portfolio for all big companies where it makes sense, and others where it doesn't make sense. This is one thing. So I'm totally with you. And the other thing is maybe also to Mr. Frauscher. I think also the corporates should become aware of fostering innovation in our country, for example, or in Europe. So meaning that, for example, as AVL, we support university programs where we support the founding of new companies. So also here we come into the game, and of course we have an advantage out of that if these are interesting startups then, and also we keep the value in the country or in Europe, for example. So also we have the responsibility a little bit, I think.
You just said we have to care where does it make sense to collaborate and where doesn't make sense to collaborate. Let us have a look to the final question I have before I ask you to wrap up to wrap up this discussion for you personally. And this question is, what are your thematic priorities for collaboration with startups? Let me start with, well, Victoria, as you have just talked about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense.
Yes, so we have those 4 areas, which I mentioned in the beginning of electrification, sensors, big data, and autonomous driving. So these are very big fields, as you see. And before we enter a proof of concept or before we enter a first collaboration, we always take a look in which part we want to collaborate and which parts are very sensible and we do not want to collaborate, of course. Mm-hmm. So I think this must be decided on a case-by-case basis. But if somebody is interested, feel free to talk to us and we see together where our way could end.
Tamas, would you like to continue? Where are your thematic priorities?
Can you please repeat the question? I don't know. I didn't hear.
Yeah. Where are your thematic priorities when it comes to collaboration with external partners? Is there a topic where you would definitely wish to collaborate?
I think our areas, as Victoria also mentioned, different, and I would say it's case-by-case decision. What we believe it's the local presence and the local collaboration, like I am a bridge between our customer center and our markets that we are serving here, including also universities and partners like this, link back to our R&D center. So where I see locally, based on our common work or based on our communication locally, a value to bring this to our headquarters and to decide how to work together, I would do the same. Or when we see that we are testing and trying something centrally, but we would like to do a field test, then it depends if it is electric motor related or monitoring related issues. Then we are mapping, let's say, the right segment, the right application, and the right people to find a match together. So generally I cannot say, but I would say being this 2 directions open way, from here back to the R&D center or from the R&D center to the local market, both way we are tracking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Alexander.
I'd like to put 2 dimensions here. So from the technology perspective, from the perspective of the dimension of what we are trying to develop, is definitely 5G is a big topic for us. It's a big topic for industry. It's a big topic for many countries. And here we are very open for the innovation and collaboration with the startups. Moreover, we have even the program which is called 5G for Startups, where we combine the efforts with them if they develop the software for the particular application or use cases. Another dimension that I'd like to put here into the context is broader collaboration on the innovation exchange experience. And here I'd like to put a focus on Austria explicitly, because Austria is well known with strong technical universities, with startup incubators, and the government is doing a lot of efforts also, as Mr. Frauscher mentioned today, with setting certain framework. And we also are open for a possibility to bring also our R&Ds in, our experience from the local office, from the global office, and then it would be much easier to identify a particular topic. So that's why, firstly, technology, but other dimension is a collaboration on the country level, where in Austria we're very, very open to this.
And Carl, any definite priorities?
Well, it's hard since Saab is quite a diverse company, but just a couple of examples. So first of all, I mean, we collaborate with things that we are not supposed to be the best at, which means that smart industry for low volume production, which we are. I mean, we don't make that many boats, airplanes, radars, whatever. So we're not a mass production, but we are a low production and smart industry. There we have found a couple of interesting startups. So please come if you have anything in that. But then also, if you look at the new businesses that I started with, like with Mimer as well, suddenly we take another part. We are good at the AI. We need sensors, we need data, we need all kinds of things moving around or sitting stationary, telling things into this. So that opens up a completely new way. And AI and ML, especially edge versions, are always interesting. But as I said, it's a vast span of product lines here. So please feel free to contact me, and new materials also, I would like to add to that.
Carl, may I at this point of time hand over another question that has just arrived here in these last minutes of this discussion. Hand aufs Herz würden wir in Österreich sagen. To be honest, how open are you sharing your internal data with external partners? Very open, I guess. Carl.
Maybe if I,
yes,
or I don't know, Carl, if you would like to go ahead, or
Tamas, it's okay. It's okay by me, Tamas.
Yes, I think it is from the very beginning. It's a clear documentation which has to be placed and then signed, and then the NDA has to be understood. So from the moment, I think it's giving the safe feeling for both partners. I think that cannot be a barrier anymore. And then obviously this comes together with the trust. So it's always like coming back to the trust. But I believe there are no legal difficulties nowadays which you cannot frame correctly, which cannot be held, because, even if we wouldn't open this, there are opportunities that this can be still copied later on, or can be misused. So I think it's the right intention to make the right frame agreement signed.
So maybe this is the perfect bridge to our wrap-up round. May I invite you to wrap up for you personally? What are you going to take with you out from this discussion? Victoria, would you like to start?
Yes. So I think it's not just out of that discussion. I really appreciate, let's say, that knowledge alliance we have here between Sweden and Austria. So thank you for that, first of all. And I hope that a lot of fruitful discussion will follow on that one. And for today, I think we had a very, let's say, common sense or a common view on a lot of topics, but still from each of the discussions and from each of the break hours, the presentations you did, I had something to take at home and which is thought for further thinking for me. So thank you for that.
And an everlasting friendship, of course. Carl, what is your takeaway message?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the audience for the questions. I mean, this is the thing that we cannot produce on our own. It's external questions about things that we might think are pretty simple, or that we also might think are pretty hard to answer sometimes. And apart from that, of course, it's the ever ongoing learning curve that even though we are in different industries, we have a lot to learn from each other as large companies. And especially when we have the favor of having the politicians here also to grasp the whole of the society that we have to be a part of in different ways. I mean, both going out into ecosystems of startups as well as going into politics and understanding how we can benefit, set up a beneficial setting for all of us. I think it's very, very relevant, and it's very good to do in these kind of manners.
Yeah. And hopefully events like this contribute to this. Alexander, what do you think?
That's a very good question as well, and I just would like to put as an outcome of this discussion and all the discussions that were happening today and yesterday at the Software Days is that innovations are possible, but they are possible to do faster if you put several collaborators into the same room. It's about collaboration with government, with startups, with startup incubators, with universities, with academias, with big corporates. And if you put all those actors together, united by a common goal, then of course innovations are possible. What I'd like explicitly to mention here is that we'd like to strengthen this innovation exchange between Austria and Sweden. And maybe just to give a short teaser, we plan a preparation for the next innovation exchange event between Swedish and Austrian companies in November, and we'd like also to welcome everybody to join this discussion later on.
Oh, fine. Tamas, what is your takeaway from these last 90 minutes?
Yes, I think the importance of similar event possibilities. So thanks also to make this happen this time. I think it's valuable information that we could really exchange. I think it has to continue, not to give, let's say, the chance that everybody is falling back their own operational daily tasks after that, but it's keep doing this. And you also mentioned the introduction that we created this live forum, which is on LinkedIn, and this is not a commercial advertisement. That's why I'm daring to say this, that please feel free and join to this Austrian-Swedish collaboration forum on LinkedIn, and we should keep it on a daily or weekly or monthly level, this discussion open, and being connected with other members as well. And as Alexander mentioned, indeed, another event is coming in November, but till November, feel free to reach us out, build up the network, build up the trust.
Sounds promising, Tamas. Thank you. And Florian Frauscher, this Austrian-Swedish cooperation that you initiated is obviously highly appreciated. So what is your takeaway, your political wrap-up out of this last 90 minutes?
I think I can agree with the others. If you want to remember just one thing after this amazing discussion, it's that collaborating is the key for everyone, for the bigger companies, for the smaller companies. And let me maybe make also one advertisement, as we also have a lot of startups listening. If you're not aware, go to the Austria Wirtschaftsservice, it's our agency. They have special platforms where they bring together startups and industry, where they bring together startups and business angels, where they bring companies together in the field of artificial intelligence. So we can give a lot of support in this field. And yeah, if we're working together, I think we can make a big step forward also in the future. Of course, we have also to work together with other countries. So I'm really happy that Sweden and Austria is working together so closely. And maybe I can also invite all our listeners to the Grande Finale tomorrow at 1 p.m. where Minister of Sweden, Minister Yemen for Digital Development, and my Minister Margrethe Schrambeck, are discussing also the topic, and yeah, I hopefully see you there.
Yeah, don't miss this grand final. I can't stress it enough. Lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and insights and precious projects with us. Good luck with all your projects, and have a good conference today and tomorrow. And well, with this, I close these workshops, but not without having a glance on what is next. So please give me the slide for the next items in the program. Yeah, here it is. Next coming up from 3 o'clock, 3 workshops are waiting for you. Thank you for being here with us and have an interesting exchange. Goodbye.